Hey guys, it's Protendo, and is it just me or does it still feel surreal that Deltarune Chapter 2 exists? I mean, when we played the first chapter back in 2018, it was accompanied by a very expectation-lowering message by Toby Fox, in which he was very open about all the development trouble the full game would face, and even said that it was potentially impossible to make. But here we are 3 years later, and the future of Deltarune has never been brighter. However, there's one small problem with this. We don't exactly know when that future is going to be attainable. The only direct piece of information we have about Deltarune's future is that chapters 3, 4, and 5 are dropping simultaneously as a paid release. And this has made a lot of people worry about how long we'll have to wait to see these characters and world once again. If it took 3 years for chapter 2 to come out, chapter 3, 4, and 5 must be insanely far away, right? Actually, wrong. Today, I'm going to go over every bit of information we've gotten about Deltarune's development and future to try to put people's fears to rest and explain why Deltarune Chapter 3, 4, and 5 are coming much sooner than you think. The majority of the information used in this video is coming directly from Deltarune.com, where Toby Fox has posted 2 detailed updates about Deltarune's development that are often overlooked. And using these updates, we can immediately debunk a popular theory that's been worrying a lot of fans. Deltarune Chapter 2 didn't take 3 years to make. In the September 2020 update, Toby Fox said this: "The good news is that a few months ago, I completed a significant milestone regarding the game's design. I completed readable outlines for every chapter in the game, including first-pass dialogue for almost all the cutscenes, examples of the music, etc. Although certain details are still hazy, the flow of the game and all major events and battles that take place are now clear. In summary, I largely spent the past 2 years writing, composing, designing, and drawing. However, that's not the whole story. We had actually attempted to develop the game since that time too. Development started around March 2019, and 99% of the work was spent on investigating engines alternate to GameMaker, which I used for Chapter 1. Without getting into the details, I decided a few months ago to go back to GameMaker after all. It still felt like the best fit for the project. So, using Chapter 1 as a base, we've started creating Chapter 2 since May 2020. This is a major revelation about Deltarune's development that fans often ignore. Chapter 2 may have taken 3 years to come out, but it was only in development for less than half that time, for at most 15 months. Nearly 20 months were spent making progress on all the game's chapters. In fact, Toby even dropped a status estimate that gives us a closer look at the works that's gone into chapters 3 through 7. Things like dialogue, enemy design, and music were super far along here, and this was a year and a half ago, so I'm sure even more progress has been made since. This is easily one of the most important pieces of info we've gotten about Deltarune's development, because not only does it tell us how long Chapter 2 took to make, but it also shows us just how much of that quote-unquote 3-year development time went into planning and designing the entirety of Deltarune. Toby also goes on to say this in the 2020 update: "I feel very confident. And the strange thing is, even though we ended up using the original engine, I don't regret the lost time either. Not only was I still busy designing the game, but during that long period, I was able to think of many ideas that make the game's story and characters better." This is a stark contrast to the attitude Toby had back in 2018 when Deltarune Chapter 1 first came out. Back then, he claimed it could very well be impossible to make the game. But as of this update, he's clearly confident that he and his team can get the job done. And speaking of, that's another contributor to the comparatively quick release that I believe Deltarune Chapter 3, 4, and 5 will end up having. Toby has a team now. In 2018, Toby said that the only way he could possibly make Deltarune was if he assembled a team. And he did just that. Going further down the September 2020 update, Toby says, "You may have noticed from my phrasing, but yes, there's a team helping me create the game. Other than me, there are about 3 active team members working day to day, with a few other people pitching in from time to time. The roles of the main members are overall content implementation and organization, bullet pattern implementation, part-time, and art, Temmie. Other than designing, I still have the role of system programmer." This is great to see, but on its own doesn't mean much in terms of us getting the next 3 chapters quicker. I mean, if Toby already had a team throughout Chapter 2's development, why would things suddenly become quicker now? Well, the answer is simple. The team did and is continuing to expand. Toby said in this statement that there are 3 main team members working on the game. However, jump to 2021 and we can see that Deltarune's main team consists of 6 people, an additional 3. This shows that Toby is continuously growing the team in order to lighten the workload on individuals and speed up development, and everything points to even more hires being on the way. To that end, I'm interested in making a list of people that could potentially help me make the game. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to ask anyone to help, but I think if I could find just one person that works well with me, it's worth asking. And here's the important bit. Chapter 2 is proceeding at a good pace, so if we do take anyone on, it will probably be for Chapter 3 onward, so please understand that anything you send in may not have an immediate result. In 2020, Toby was looking specifically for people who can help out with Chapters 3 through 7, not 2. The Deltarune dev team is going to, and likely already has, seen yet another expansion to make the next 3 chapters drop as soon as possible. Toby says as much in the September 2021 update. We've gained a lot of experience working on this chapter. I believe it's the biggest chapter in the entire game in many ways. The cutscene count is the largest, the story involves many characters, and there are many other aspects that make it a challenging chapter. For next time, I think if we can expand the team a little more, then things will really kick off. Maybe. Not only does this confirm further team expansions, but it also touches on yet another reason why Chapters 3, 4, and 5 will release sooner than Chapter 2 did. Chapter 2 specifically was extremely hard to create. Like I just said, Chapter 2 is the largest chapter in Deltarune. Working on a game's most demanding chapter would be difficult no matter what, but doing so as a team's first project upon assembly, as well as in the midst of a global pandemic, was sure to cause some issues. And on top of that, Toby unfortunately had his own disability to work through. In 2020, Toby said this: "Although I have long suffered from wrist and hand pain, about 5 months ago my wrist was the worst it's ever been. I could not play the piano, use the mouse, and barely could use the keyboard. I navigated everything through voice to text. Through weightlifting, exercise, and various equipment, I have been able to somewhat increase the stamina of my wrist to an extent. Various solutions have included trackball mice for each hand, using voice to text whenever possible, using a foot pedal to click the mouse, etc. Now I can use the mouse and keyboard for a certain amount of time each day, provided I take frequent breaks. I wish I could work without stopping. Once the world situation improves, I would really like to take physical therapy again and/or investigate surgery to repair my wrist." I can only imagine how draining this impairment would be, not only physically, but mentally, to a man who's as hands-on with his art as Toby Fox is, and I hope he's able to get better soon. To my knowledge, Toby hasn't given us another update on his wrist since, so I'm unaware if he's ended up pursuing physical therapy or surgery yet. What I do know, however, is that thankfully, his ever-expanding team of developers will alleviate a lot of the pain Toby would have to endure to make this game himself, so that hopefully, his wrist never gets as bad as it was in 2020 again. Okay, so far we've talked about all the struggles Chapter 2 faced, from being worked on during a pandemic, to being the largest chapter in the game, to having it be a literal pain for Toby to work on because of his disability. We've also discussed how it wasn't in development for 3 years, but instead 15 months at most, and how the team is being expanded to work on the game's future chapters at a much quicker pace. But there's one more thing that I'd like to take a look at, and that's Tobys' new approach to releasing Deltarune. Like I touched on before, he seems much more confident in the game actually being achievable, and this confidence can be seen further in the 2020 update. Once we finish Chapter 2, I would like to use it as a base to create further chapters from. After gaining experience from this chapter, I think making future chapters will be easier. But more interesting to me is the new release plan in general, which Toby explains in the 2021 update. Originally, I had planned to release chapters only when all of them are finished, but honestly, it's hard both for creators and fans to go a long time without a release. So, I changed my mind. I think most people will be happy about this. My next goal is to complete chapters 3, 4, and 5 for next time. Then, at that time, I will ask people to buy the game, at the price of the first 5 chapters, including 1 and 2. I don't know what the price is yet, but it's definitely going to cost more than Undertale. So, next time you want to ask, when's Chapter 3? You can ask, when can I buy Chapter 3, 4, and 5? I'll give you a lot of money. I won't know the answer until it's done, though. This is an insanely crucial point in the updates because it establishes something very important. Toby doesn't want to go a long time without a release. And if he doesn't, why would he confirm that Chapter 3, 4, and 5 are going to drop together if they wouldn't be able to in a time frame lesser or at least equal to our wait for Chapter 2? If it was going to take 5 years to make these 3 chapters like some people claim, why would Toby drop them together instead of individually? To me, this shows confidence that starting now, Deltarune is going to be worked on highly efficiently. 3 chapters dropping together, the team being expanded, work already being put into conceptualizing every portion of the game, it all leads me to believe that Deltarune is being developed with time effectiveness more in mind than ever. So, one question remains. When will Deltarune's next chapters drop? Well, I could use all the information we've just garnered to make an educated guess, or I could just listen to Sans. In all seriousness, yes, I do believe that 2 years between Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, 4, and 5 is reasonable. It might seem like insanity to predict the release of 3 chapters coming quicker than the release of 1, but as we've established, actual development of Chapter 2 only took up a portion of that 3-year-long wait, and during that time, a bunch of things went wrong or made it more difficult than it normally would be. With these next few chapters, Deltarune is in a much more comfortable position development-wise, and I feel confident that we'll end up seeing it in 2023. Can't wait to end up being wrong and get put on blast for this in 2 years. Anyways guys, that's about it for this video. As always, I'd love to hear what you think. When do you think Deltarune Chapter 3 will end up dropping? Am I off the mark or dead on? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Deltarune content. I'll see you all later. Protendo, out.